Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 203rd episode, we have a very special guest in 7-time Atlanta Health IT Entrepreneur of the Year, and my good friend and neighbor, Bird Blitch, co-founder and CEO of Patientco. Welcome to the show, Bird.
It is great to be on the show. It's a small world, is it not?
It's a very small world, and I'm just happy that I have the 7-time Atlanta Health IT Entrepreneur on the line. I am so blessed, beyond belief.
And you know what I'm happy is when my dad told me the saying, don't believe everything that people say about you, and this is certainly the case model for that.
Exactly. But if I had a vote, I would make you the 7-time Atlanta Health IT Entrepreneur of the Year. So, but anyhow.
I need to introduce you to my wife.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Cool. Well, first of all, how are you, my friend? We have not caught up in a long time, but how are you doing?
You know, I am, it's been quite the year, 2020.
Yes.
Right. We have businesses to grow and important things to accomplish.
Yep.
Then you throw on top of the pandemic, you've got, you know, an economic crisis and certainly, you know, the civil unrest. It's a lot to process, but, you know, I know that we're up for the task.
Yes. And
we're all going to be better as we get through this.
Yes. Totally agree. So a little background. Obviously, I know you fairly well, but for my audience, where did you grow up, attend college, all that good stuff?
Well, I grew up in Northeast Georgia, town of Winder, Georgia, okay. And then went to middle and high school in Athens. So certainly love Athens. It's a great town. But then I turned in my red and black colors for gold and white, went to Georgia Tech, yep. And became an engineer, which is in Atlanta.
Love it. Excellent. And what did you study at Georgia Tech?
I studied industrial and systems engineering. So I like to think of that as an efficiency. You know, we're efficiency experts. Mm-hmm. You know, we're focused on processes. We're focusing on getting the slack out of you know, all the different things that you're trying to do in an organization. It's certainly built upon principles of like Deming, and you think about manufacturing, which, you know, was a stalwart of our economy for so long.
Yes.
But I think it translates into so many other things. It's business engineering, certainly in so many ways.
Okay, excellent. So tell us a little about Patientco. You're obviously founder, co-founder, and CEO, but tell us about the company and what makes you guys different in the market.
So, you know, Patientco is addressing this problem around, I think we've all experienced it, where healthcare is hard to understand. You don't know what to pay for, when to pay for it, how to pay for it, mm-hmm. And the complexity that exists on our side as consumers is even more complex and hard on the side of the providers. So think about health systems, and that translates into you know, a lot of confusion, a lot of a lot of slack, right? A lot of challenges there, and that means less revenue coming in the door. So for a business to be healthy, it needs to be good about getting revenue in the door. Patientco is in the business of helping health systems understand that patient payments are an economic growth engine.
Right.
They get you know, 3 buckets of revenue: the public payer, Medicare, Medicaid, the private payer, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and so forth, and then the fastest growing payer is the patient.
Yep. And
helping both sides get on the same page there. And what makes Patientco unique, perhaps, is that we're also a payments company. So we move the dollars just like First Data, just like Global Payments. We're a payments processor. And what's unique about that is when you start moving the dollars, you start to understand the digital footprint of where people are paying, and they pay as a result of understanding. And if you tie the understanding and the payment together, you can start to communicate a lot better around these complex areas of care. And we feel like as a result, you're starting to address things like affordability, transparency, these areas that allow people to engage fully in their healthcare experience so that they stay healthy and are satisfied as a result of going through the clinical aspects of healthcare.
So what are a few specific functionalities that you would highlight there?
For example, contactless payments.
Mm-hmm.
Gone are the days, especially if you think about germs and phobia around that as a result of this pandemic. Gone are the days of making a copay and taking that pin that's tethered to the copay terminal that every other patient has touched as you walked into the doctor's office,
right,
and signing when you make a copay. Now, imagine getting a text message 30 days before you come into the doctor's office with an estimate, giving you greater understanding on what the cost should be, giving you flexible payment options, whether you want to finance that payment or make it in a payment plan on the spot, and doing it all through your phone so that you are in control of how you pay, when you pay, and even where. And that's putting the consumer in charge of their own financial health, which is an important problem we're solving for.
I love it. No, you're tackling consumerism head on. So
correct. We believe every line of code that we lay at Patientco is we're integrated vertical payment software. And so as we go to market solving for the important aspects of understanding, everything we do is how the patient sees things first. And then we translate that on the back end of the front office and the back office of the hospital. Most software today is built for the front and back office of the hospital. And then as a result, the patient has to try to understand that, the CPT code, all the clinical aspects that only really a doctor and a nurse were trained to understand. So that's what we're solving for, that we're passionate about.
So, and phenomenal from a consumer standpoint, and obviously there's benefits to the provider and the practice and the health system, but what are some of the aspects that a provider would glean onto? Like when your teams are speaking to health systems or practices and clinics, what are the 2 or 3 things that you highlight to them, say, hey, this is what we do. This is what we do really well and better than anybody else?
Well, we try to focus on the outputs of what we do really well. We are one platform that has all these aspects under one roof. Mm-hmm. So that as you think about a clinically integrated delivery network, we're really pushing forward on the vision of a financially integrated delivery network. You think about, one bill and all the things that we as consumers want to have greater understanding. As a result of these things, and everyone in the health system, both patients and providers, front office and back office, being on the same page together, you will see more payments coming in the door. You will see much higher patient satisfaction rates.
Wow.
You will see lower cost of collect to bring those dollars in the door, which are metrics that hospitals focus on. And then I think from a humanistic perspective, we believe that a patient's financial health is directly tied to their clinical health well-being as well. And 25% of patients delay needed treatment due to concerns about out-of-pocket costs, which then worsen their conditions. So empowering patients to navigate their own financial decisions and engage with clinicians as easily as possible is truly, transformative.
Yeah, and I will give a plug here. I think I've mentioned this several times to you, but my wife visited one of your customers. This was many moons ago. I mean, probably 6-7 years ago. But the bill that we got in the mail was hard to say or whatever, but it was the best bill I've ever seen in healthcare. It was the most clear. Yeah. The way it is so consumer focused. And again, this is 7 years ago or 6 years ago, so I know you're much better now. but just the font you used, the colors that you used, when it was so easy to understand.
I love it.
It wasn't this very little, little fine print and all this little text. No, you had a very clear, crisp, very understandable bill from the practice. So that meant a lot to us. And so, that's just kudos to you. And you were on this, you're a leader for many moons, but, that was 7 years ago. So phenomenal to you and congratulations.
I love hearing it. It never gets old.
Yeah.
It's something that inspires us, to go in and double down on our work efforts, because these are hard problems to solve for. And we always feel like we have a long ways to go, but we're making tremendous progress. So I appreciate you saying that and sharing that. I remember when you did it originally.
Yep.
It's just fuel.
Yep. It's
fuel to the soul.
Awesome. So what are you seeing in the industry right now? I mean, obviously we're post-COVID and but still a lot of the effects of COVID-19. But what are you seeing around the industry right now and moving forward in the next couple of weeks and months?
I think you're going to see a lot of health systems trying to, in industry first, there's a tremendous gap of revenue that these health systems need to make up on.
Yes.
So that's a problem. The second thing is you have a lot of patients that have put off care, as primary care physicians have been closed, as elective surgeries have been turned off and now they're being turned back on. It's like a dam out there that now is just the backup is pushing over the dam, and these hospitals are processing the elective procedures. That turns into claims, and that turns into a lot of work on the revenue cycle side. So that's where, we are seeing health systems focus on. There's questions, is there another wave? What's next? We just are trying to work with health systems to provide certainty around these revenue streams, because the patient dollar is the hardest one to get in the door. And so we got to meet the consumer where they are. And that's what we're focused on. We're trying to also help the health system, take these payments and work on these communications inside of where they are. So it could be Epic, it could be Cerner, Meditech, but it's all about meeting the individual where they are with software today in an integrated way. And then, of course, anything you can do from a payments perspective or a communications perspective that's contactless, you want to do it. If you don't have to open up mail and you can do that electronically, let's do it. You can make a payment by a few text messages on your cell phone, let's do it. It's quicker, easier, faster, and it increases consumer satisfaction.
That's awesome. Excellent. And for those joining us a little late today, my guest is Blitch, co-founder and CEO of Patientco. So where do you see the remainder of 2020 unfolding from a digital health perspective, or even, we just touched on a little bit there, but, 2020, 2021 from a digital health perspective?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about digital, digital. Mm-hmm. And everybody, not just, patients, providers, they are rethinking how they're going to engage and interact with each other.
Yes.
That is definitely the hot topic. So, hospitals got to be more delicate than ever before in these times, especially when affordability is such a hot button issue. But whether the visit is considered virtual or in person, certainly clinicians are heading down this path of demonstrating that care can be provided in a virtual world, and in a very good way. We just feel the same way on financial care. We can communicate about out-of-pocket expenses with the clarity and compassion before, during, or after a virtual or in-person service, offering digital ways to pay that are patient-friendly in languages that people can understand. That is a hot topic. And so while suddenly millions of people are financially squeezed due to this economic downturn, mm-hmm. health systems are talking about how they can provide flexible self-service options that removes the need for phone calls and staff intervention. No one wants to pick up the phone anymore at home and have to talk about payment issues. So we can help that health system empathize in the financial realm of these aspects, just as they're doing in the clinical realms.
Yeah. Smart. I love it. I agree. I've, as you know, you and I were catching up a little bit off air, and my world is deep in virtual care now, and that's everything is digital. It's contactless. It's how much can patients do from their own device, and they don't want to. They don't want to do phone. They don't want to make phone calls if they don't have to. So you're spot on, my friend. Fantastic. So diving in, this show is heavily focused on best practices, and I always want to share with the world what we learn on a daily basis and what from mistakes that we've made and from things that we've succeeded at. We always like to share best practices. So starting off with the innovators, what best practices would you share with digital health innovators so they can thrive over the next 1 to 2 years in the coming months and years?
That's a great question. That's a great one. I mean, digital health innovators, I think, technology, we love technology. I mean, I know you and I love it and consumers love it. Technology solves problems that I think once seemed impossible to solve. I mean, just look last week at SpaceX and the amazing things that are going on there. So I think to the innovators, I would say, focus on solving the problems that weren't even identified as problems in the first place. There's a lot of inconveniences. And so to kind of do that, I just am a big believer on kind of iterating and repeating on iteration.
Yes.
You've got to do that quickly. You've got to listen to your customer. You got to stay focused on solving for your market's biggest problems. But to do that, it's not usually what you think the answer is. It's listening, writing that down, looking at patterns, listening again, and then innovating quickly. And the faster you can innovate, the faster you're going to strike on something that is such a big issue for people. I will tell you, contactless payments is one of those for us.
Yep.
And innovating is fun when you start doing it like that.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I love the focus on you've got to listen. You got to solve a problem, and then you got to make sure that you're in touch with the market. You got to listen. You got to listen to your customers. You listen to your customers' biggest problems, and then you got to innovate. And you got to innovate fast. That's one of the kind of the secrets to my sauce as well. Is we can crank out code within a matter of hours and days, and that's we used to, which you can't always do that, and that's not always the answer. But when it is the answer, you do it because you impress the customer. Yeah, do it because there's also a culture out there. Well, hey, we got to put it part of the life cycle, then we'll roll it out in 6 months and that kind of stuff. And the markets they're trained for that. But now these innovators are coming in. Like I was an older guard. I've been around for 23 years doing this stuff. But now there's a new market, and if you can crank out code in 48 hours or even 7 days, and solve a quick problem for people, they don't forget that. And so
they do not forget it. They reward you for that.
Amen.
They reward you with loyalty, and they reward you with more of their thoughts, which it's like a snowball. It keeps going. And so the most important person in any innovator's Rolodex is their customer.
Yes, very, very true. And to give cover for all the developers out there and product strategists. I'm not saying that all development, and nor is Bird saying all development should be done in 7 days, because there is a product life cycle. You want to make sure everything works well and it's well tested and well QA'd. We get all that. It's just when we can innovate and we can do things quickly, that's very different. That's where people can beat you if you're not innovating in those areas when you can. So
correct. And it just listening. I keep going back to that's one of our biggest lessons. Is it's easy to think that you might know more of the answers.
So true.
But the truth is, the people who are fighting through the problems every single day, they have a lot of ideas if you just ask questions and keep digging and ask questions.
I love it. Yep. Keep digging, ask questions, listen. They'll give you the answer, which is really cool. It's free consulting, to be honest.
It's free consulting. I love that. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So now shifting over, that's the best practices for the digital health innovators out there. So now what would you share for best practices for care providers so they can thrive in the coming months and years? Obviously the market's changed a lot on them. You've talked about contactless payments, which would be a great best practice, but how would they, either from a functionality standpoint, from the way you see your industry, or even as you look at their practice, because you're a thought leader as well. You've been in healthcare for 20 plus years too. So what have you seen, from what advice would you give for best practice to care providers?
So that's a good one. And I'm probably going to go, you and I could talk about this topic for a long time.
Yes.
I'm probably going to stay a little bit on track with some of the themes of this talk here, but I strongly believe that, when you ought to have the same consistency from your doctors for your financial care as you should your clinical care. Right? You go have a great clinical care experience, and why is the financial care so broken, hard to understand, and it's the last touch often. So it's the worst. It's just fraught with problems, but also opportunities to solve for. And I think, healthcare has to understand the importance of helping all of us as patients remove these financial barriers to care, because if you do that, then you can support the financial, you can support the physical well-being of the communities that we're serving, and that at the end of the day is what practicing medicine is about. So when I go back to digital innovators, you gotta rid the barriers of the things that allow you to get to the solution, and that's providing the care. Well, same here. Doctors have to, and administrators have to think about getting rid of those barriers. And so you got to think about how all these technologies that we're looking at these days, they ensure that all patients can understand their financial responsibility and think about affordability. Going back to contactless payments, for patients that have an in-person visit, they don't want to touch a credit card terminal. Adoption of telehealth has really surged, as we were talking about previously, and so revenue cycle team members who they also used to be in a service center. Now they're working remotely, so the ability to transact contactless payments from anywhere, because both people groups are not in a physical office, is now more, I think, important than ever. And we talked about text to pay, but that turns everyone's own devices. I just want to reiterate that it's its own point of service system.
Right.
And that's pretty cool when you think about that. And so then you got two important goals that have been achieved. It reduces the spread of germs, and it's going to improve and simplify, that patient experience. And I think, if anything else, you're talking about cost these days. You're reducing a healthcare organization's reliance on expensive hardware devices, and then that, catapults into, less exposure to security and PCI risk, which is a big deal. And then, you're also minimizing, human error because it's automated through technology. And this is harder to do when health systems are working remotely to try to process a payment for a telehealth visit. So it's like all this stuff just starts going together, and suddenly one little thing adds up. And if you're not providing a holistic solution here, it's like death by 1,000 cuts for the healthcare system.
Right.
That's why you have to think about this holistically. I also am really, really a proponent of telehealth.
Yes.
Telehealth is paving the way for higher patient expectations. So that's going to have a whole another wave of things that will be driven as a result of that. Just having patients, they're going to expect always that they can engage digitally.
Yes.
And it's not just about billing and payment. It's, of course, clinical. It's test results. Then you start going down the fact of, why should patients have to wait for their medical bill to arrive during traditional mail? Why can't they look at it immediately in their wallet, just on the same screen that their doctor was on? This is where we're all going. We all want to be on the same page. And I think health systems are taking note of this. So, we certainly see it that many are expanding those digital capabilities over the next year or two. And we actually just did a survey on this, and it was very revealing. It showed several organizations plan to implement things like chat box and digital first billing initiatives to solve for this.
Love it. That's fantastic, Bird. Great advice and recommendation. So I have about 40 seconds for my last question. And this is always my favorite question that I get to ask people. And also it's my It's my, it's actually its own radio show at times. People love to hear this. So where do you invest your time, talent, and treasure, and why?
Time, talent, and treasure. I tell you, time is, you've got family, and certainly we really believe in humanizing healthcare around this financial experience. So that's a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Time, talent, treasure, to be honest with you, is causing me to rethink some of the things that, and how we do this today based on, our society and some of the challenges we're going through as a society. But, talent, I believe in certainly, exercising, what you're good at and trying to double down on that.
Mm-hmm.
And treasure, we have a core value at Patientco. It's important to give back, whether it's your time or, financially.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of nonprofits that need help there. And I'm thinking of that treasure a little differently these days, because that's what we have. Time is hard to find. Talent it's hard to do a lot of things. You got to be focused. And so how do we take treasure and give it to some folks who can put more use to that?
Fantastic, my friend. Well, I love it. We're at time. Phenomenal to have you on air. And I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us, my friend.
I love listening to this show. Thank you so much for having me on. You do a great job. Best of luck, my friend, and best of luck to everybody out there who's listening. It's a great day to hear your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. And please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HOT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so we can respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, all my shows are posted on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Play, and TuneIn. Also, you can check out the new website that we launched at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week and stay safe.